Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. For the record, Representative John Simmons representing District 109 in Franklin County. And as the chair mentioned, House Bill 2383 is the exact replica of the Vice Chair's Bill 903 that you all heard in the committee and also went to the floor and got voted out 30-0. It came out of the House with a 130 to 5 vote. And just to refresh everyone's memory what this bill is, it deals with critical infrastructure and specifically wireline, copper wire and the like. For some reason, decades ago, that wasn't included in the long list that you see in that section. And so what had been happening has been a lot of theft, a lot of damage on a lot of the telecommunications. In fact, just last week, there was 2 individuals that were trying to steal some of the telecommunications equipment and wire. One person actually got electrocuted to death. The other person then was also left the scene, and he was charged with leaving the scene of a dead corpse. So it's a real issue. It's a real issue in my district. Unfortunately, Missouri has a high ranking. I think testimony was the top 3 or 4 states that had this type of issue of a lot of damage and the destruction and tampering with it. And St. Louis City itself, I think, was top 5 or 6 cities in the country. And so what it does is basically create some felony provisions depending on if you purposely damage or destroy or tamper with equipment. It'll be a Class D felony. If you recklessly damage or destroy or tamper that critical infrastructure, it'll be a different type of penalty, mainly based on the value. If it's a $750 or below, it's a Class A misdemeanor, and it goes up to over $25,000 of damage. It becomes a Class E felony. There is a provision that if a Class D felony if it's over $25,000. If there's interruption or impairment or degradation of service, it bumps it up to a Class C felony. Any person who does commit these violations are required to do some restitution as well as perform some community service. And then there's a list of kind of what is included in this infrastructure equipment, and that's on page 3, line 2 through 8. And then we did put a provision also for if you have possession, unlawful possession of it, that's going to be a Class C felony. But then there's obviously people that are in possession that are supposed to legitimately be in possession. And so the end of page 3 and the rest of page 4 basically carves out those legitimate uses. If you're working on your house chair, you're not going to be guilty of anything because you have copper wire in your truck. You just came back from Home Depot or something. Contractors for hire, obviously they may have that equipment in their truck. Obviously people that actually make and manufacture the equipment, they're not going to be guilty of that. So that's where those provisions are in on that. And with that, I will take any questions. Thank you, Representative. Any questions?
Just a statement. Great bill.
It's an awesome bill. I agree with you, Vice Chair.
Seeing no other questions. How many people want to testify in favor of this bill? How many in opposition? Okay, please come forward. And remember, we've heard this bill pretty thoroughly, so make it brief if you can. And please fill out a witness form when you come up and leave it. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Doug Galloway. I'm here on speaking behalf in support of House Bill 2383 for AT&T. I want to thank the sponsor of the House bill. He presented my testimony, so I will stop and answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next in favor, please come forward. And let me say something too. On anybody that's testifying on Senate Bill 1411 today, it's going to be kind of lengthy, so I'm going to give a lot of latitude to the first witness or so on both sides. So please get organized who your best spokesman is to talk first, and then after that we'll probably churn through them pretty quick. So thank you very much for doing that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, Scott Swain representing Verizon and also the Police Chiefs Association for the state. Want to go on record in favor.
Thank you very much. Any witnesses?
Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none. Next in favor, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Trent Ford. I'm from the Recycled Materials Association here in support of the bill. I'd like to thank Representative Simmons, Senator Henderson for their continued willingness to work with us in crafting the bill. The bill should mirror each other. I think you've heard enough of it now. And we really like that the crimes, the penalties actually match the crimes on this bill. And that's something that I think, with law enforcement's help, that we can really quell some of this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Questions
you.
for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Next in favor, please come forward.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mike Sutherland with the Missouri Electric Cooperatives, and we'd like to go on record as support of Representative Simmons' bill. We have 17 broadband subsidiaries and, of course, the other critical infrastructure with all of our other electric cooperatives, and we find this is an important bill. So be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Next in favor, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Noel Torpy for the record with MCTA, the Cable Association. We want to go on record in favor of this. Unfortunately, Missouri ranks third in the country with these crimes, and so anything we can do to strengthen the laws, we greatly appreciate. Happy to answer any questions.
For this witness? Seeing none. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Next in favor, please come forward. Okay. Hang on just 1 minute, please. We now have a quorum present. Hey, will you go ahead and call the roll?
Senator Serpoy,
Here.
Henderson, Bernsketter, Carter, Fitzwater, Gregory 21, May, McCreary, and Mosley.
We got 5, right? So okay. We have a quorum. Thank you. We're official. Go ahead and testify when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Shannon Hawk. I'm here today on behalf of the Missouri Municipal League and the Municipal League of Metro St. Louis. We'd like to go on record in support of the bills. We thank both of the sponsors. I also want to thank AT&T for reaching out to us in advance to talk about the legislation, so we're very happy to be here to support it today. We just think it's a public safety issue.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Next in favor, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jared Hankinson, representing Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Happy to go on record to support and take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none.
Thank you very much.
Next in favor, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Fred Dreiling today, representing City Utilities of Springfield and the Missouri Association of Municipal Utilities. We would like to go on record in support of the bill. It helps protect critical infrastructure and also helps save our ratepayers money, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Seeing no questions. Next in favor, please come forward. And then when you get done, if you have no other bills here, we have a couple of people waiting to sit down, so if you give up your seat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Hensley on behalf of the Missouri Energy Development Association, just going on record in favor of the bill.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none. Anybody else in favor? Anybody in opposition? Anybody for information? Are you in opposition? Oh.
Jack Gamble here on behalf of the Missouri Broadband Providers Association, just here to go on record in support.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Anybody else in favor? Opposition? Anybody for information purposes? Thank you. Then that will conclude the hearing on House Bill 2383. Next up, we'll have House Bill 2397. Representative Bromley, start when you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Bob Bromley, representing District 162 in Southwest Missouri. House Bill 2397 deals with how a water district, a public water district, would be dissolved if that district decides to do that. And it's really a pretty simple bill. It's been worked on a few years, but just a brief history, a lot of these small water districts are having a very difficult time maintaining their water systems. Some of them are quite small. There's over, I think, 2,700 different water municipalities, districts now within the state, and some of these are very small districts. It's very difficult sometimes to do the water sampling, to do the maintenance, and keep these systems up to where everybody has safe drinking water. What this bill simply does is it would change the threshold that could be used for the board of directors to take a vote of the people. All of this maintains local control, but this would reduce the vote threshold from either 2/3 down to 4/7 if the board decides, but the board can decide either to do 2/3 or 4/7, so there could be no changes. It also, in the past, the referendum had to have a statement asking the people when they voted on this whether they wanted to dissolve that water district. It did not say that they had another water district that was going to serve them, and that was always confusing to the people because they would get to the ballot box when this was on the ballot and it would say simply, do you want to dissolve your water district? Well, that scared a lot of people, and so this language in here would have to make sure that in the language of that vote, the people would know that there was another water district that was going to be in charge of serving them. And so there's been a lot of discussion over the years on this. Just a brief history. At one time, the vote was 2/3. It was changed to 4/7. It went back to 2/3. And this simply would give the board of directors the ability to make that vote either 2/3 or 4/7. It still has to go in front of the people. It still has to go in front of the PSC to make sure it's a worthwhile cause and that it's good for the customers. And so this actually puts a lot more controls on it. It just simply gives a little bit more latitude and makes sure that people know they have a water district that's going to serve them. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
So is this mostly when the bigger companies want to buy up a water company?
Pardon me?
Does this usually occur when big, like investor-owned water company wants to buy up the smaller ones?
Typically that's what would happen, and this puts some controls on that. And most of the time, a lot of people, when this first came out, they thought this would encourage a lot of hostile takeovers. Most of these small water districts, they're not looking to be hostilely taken over. They're just wanting to make sure they have a good water supply.
So we're going from, I'm just doing the math, with 100 voters, right now you need 66 of them to approve it, and we're going to say 4/7 is 56.
57.1%.
Okay, so is there a problem getting 2/3 of the people in these districts to say yes, and we think there's a...
Sometimes there is, and that's a pretty high threshold on this, but the board of directors, they can make that decision. Sometimes the board wants to make that decision to go ahead and sell, and they can't get the votes. That's happened a couple different times, and
It's not the registered voters, it's just the turnout. So if you don't vote, it doesn't matter. You just need 57% or 66%.
57% of the people that vote.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Senator Perry?
Good morning. So if this is such a good deal and something that a community wants, why wouldn't they vote for it?
So why would they vote for it?
Why would they not vote for it?
So a lot of times these smaller water districts, typically we think of water district as being, a large entity, maybe 5,000, 10,000, but these could be very, very small. And a lot of times those people that run those water districts, they could have 5 family members that work in the same district. And they may be trying to think that, well, this might protect my jobs and that, although usually when these get purchased, everybody ends up going to work for that company anyway because they're familiar with it. And so there's a lot of different reasons. I don't know every reason why people would decide not to vote for it, but there are a lot of times where people just they always think of change as maybe being different or bad, and so a lot of people may think that it's just bad for them. So
Yeah, I just struggle with why we think that the voters that show up that day don't know what's best for their community.
I just think there's some times where these have failed, and I know there's been a couple cities where they've received, they've tried 2 or 3 different times, and they've got one time 65%, and so there's been some really close votes, and I just think this gives a little bit more flexibility. I want to keep in mind that anytime they take these, if there's going to be a buyout of one of these districts, that's still not only is approved, it has to be approved by the courts, it has to be approved by the PSC if the investor owned, and it has to be proven that it's good for the customers also.
Right. Well, and if you want to go down that path, then there's problems with that process as well, because I think it's really unfair for the voter, say you did get what you want in this bill, which I'm not comfortable with, then the voters say they vote on something, it passes this lower threshold, it still has to be approved by the courts and the Public Service Commission. So what that basically, the message to the voters back to them is that their vote doesn't actually matter, because there's other opinions and other people that get to trump the will of the people. And so, we had the same situation in Eureka, and we've worked on language to make it very clear to the voters that just because you vote yes on this and it passes, it's still that your vote basically can be disregarded if the PSC decides that it's not in the best interest of the community. So I also have a problem with giving this false sense of passage to voters, because there are other entities that can say, no, that's not best for your community.
Well, I respect what you're saying, but I would look at it in a different way. I would look at it that the voters have to basically say that, yes, we want this, and then you've got some people on the other side of it, you've got the courts and also the PSC double checking that to make sure it truly is good for them. And so I would look at this as almost like a security check, making sure that it was good, not just for the existing customers, but for the system buying them also. And so I would look at it as a safeguard more than anything to protect the people once they voted that they actually wanted to do this.
That's interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can you give me the history of the two-thirds? Where'd it come from?
I've had a hard time hearing you.
Where'd the two-thirds idea come from? Because apparently it's been there for decades.
So it's been back and forth over years. Two-thirds was historically, that's what it's been. Then it went to 4/7, then it went back to two-thirds, and I don't know exactly originally how it came up with.
Okay. Thank you. Senator May?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
So let me do some clarifying. No matter what percentage it is, you still have the courts and the PSC after the vote. Is that correct?
Yes.
Currently in statute.
If the citizens decide that maybe they haven't had good service, maybe they have had low water pressure, maybe they've had violations in the system, even if they decide that they want to move forward with this with a vote, then it still has to be looked at by the courts and also by the PSC to make sure that it is good for them.
Okay. So is that process before the vote or after the vote? It's before the vote.
So it has to be approved. The vote, the court system, they have to decide ahead of time that they can go forward with the vote.
And so if they decide that they can go forward with the vote, then the voters vote, and if the vote comes out in the majority, but it still has to be approved finally by the PSC if an investor-owned would purchase them. Okay. And so what has been the hindrance, for as, what has been the conversation in communities in reference to the pros and cons? Because is this privatizing the water districts, basically?
So I think a lot of times these things are, most of us don't think a lot about our water systems. We just know we turn the faucet on, we get water. And a lot of times people are scared, I think, that, we're going to have change here. We're going to end up with maybe a different system. Mm-hmm. Historically, a lot of times when these systems get purchased, the PSC, they can come in and maintain certain rates for a certain period of time. And so I think a lot of times people are just hesitant to vote on something if they're already getting their water.
Okay. And also, it may be a threat that the rates go up, may fluctuate, things like that. I'm just trying to figure out what's in the mind of the residents, in reference to this when we're getting ready to make this change,
So I think a lot of times it'd be like, anytime there's a change taking place, you're worried whether you're going to still have a good water supply, whether you're going to have safe water, because that's what all of us want. And you also are concerned about the rates on it. Mm-hmm. And what's happening a lot of times, and a lot of the consumers, some of these smaller public water districts, their rates are higher than where they're going to, mm-hmm. because it is very difficult now with all the water sampling, all the maintenance, and lack of infrastructure upgrades and that. Some of these public water systems are very old, and they don't have $5 million. And if they had to spread that cost out amongst a small number of, they may only have 1,000 residents or even fewer, then their rates would have to go up dramatically. And so you always have that battle of, people's decision whether they think it's going to be good or bad. And I think those are some of the things that factor into it.
And so also, so on the other side is the cost for the community to maintain the district, the water district.
And what exactly was your question?
No, I'm asking, is that a consideration? So we're talking about, some of these, getting rid of the public water system. Is that a consideration that's being thought about?
Yes, all of that would be looked at, and usually, all of these water districts are independently governed by their boards, and a lot of times those boards, make decisions, and they try to make sure that they're doing what's best for the consumers in that district, and so ultimately, they do look at those costs. They look at how much it's going to cost long-term to maintain them. They also look at the availability of employees. And, sometimes it's just easier from economies of scale for a larger company to operate these smaller districts.
Yeah, and so with the board and the public system, the people have more control, though, than they would if it went the other way. If someone else purchased it, it became privatized, the people will have less control.
Yes, I think you probably could say that.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Just curious first of all, I think your district is phenomenal, one of the best in the state, so just thank you for representing them so well. And then secondarily, just curious what your thoughts are on whether or not the ballot language, to your point, is a lot of what drives the vote. And if just some clarification on that vote, on the ballot language, might be more of the solution than changing the threshold.
Well, historically, on the ballot, it just said, do you want to dissolve your water district? This would actually clarify and make sure that it states, do you want to, it's in the language here, but do you want to dissolve that? And this is who will be taking that over.
So just share your opinion on that and what you think. Is that mostly the solution, do you think? Rather than changing the threshold, is just adding clarification to the ballot language?
So, I think that would help the vote on these. I think that's a positive to do this, because I think what most people in the water districts, and I've talked to a lot of them, what they really do fear if you're a consumer is, what am I going to do for water if, we just dissolve this?
Correct.
And so
just again, I'm wondering to myself how much of this not being able to reach that threshold is because of the ballot language, and if we were to add clarification on the ballot language, if it would be easier to be able to pass.
Yeah, and the one thing that this does is the board of directors, they're still responsible to the constituents in their district as far as their customers, and so we're leaving this with local control whether they decide to make it 4/7 or 2/3. So they can still decide which one they want to do on this.
How many people want to testify in favor of this bill? How many in opposition? Okay, good. We're about equal there. So first person in favor, please come forward. And everybody bring a witness form with you and let us know who you are. First person in favor?
Good morning. Garrett Webb, registered lobbyist for Central States Water Resources, 10th largest investor-owned utility with several hundred small water utilities across the country now in our family. We just think that the bill adds a lot of clarity for local communities. A lot of the water systems that Central States acquires are distressed, or their infrastructure needs significant upgrades. And so this kind of allows those communities to make the determination for themselves of what vote to go with, and that's why we support it.
So is this usually happening because the water district is in trouble because this stuff's pretty expensive, and if it's small, it can't afford to rehab their system? Is that a lot of times the motivation behind this?
As far as Central States, the majority of the water systems that they're acquiring, they are in states of disrepair or distress, or in very, very small communities with limited populations to sustain the ongoing operations of the system.
And and 2/3 of the people don't agree then that there's a problem and they should make some changes?
I don't think that we've had a significant issue with getting a majority approval in most of the dissolution votes, but we do think that this would provide the flexibility to more communities if they, have smaller voting populations or smaller service connections populations.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Garrett, next in favor, please come forward. Don't be bashful.
So good morning, Matt Jesse, Missouri American Water. Great to be with you all. I just want to make a couple comments that the chairman didn't mention that I think are important to recognize about this bill. So it passed out of the House Utilities Committee this year nearly unanimously, passed House Rules unanimously, passed the House on third read with 130 votes. So there was broad support, bipartisan in the House. In terms of what you're going to hear from opponents of this legislation, they'll say that the statute, it's been 2/3 to create these water districts, so there should be 2/3 to dissolve these water districts. This statute was created almost 100 years ago. And they did it with 2/3 because they wanted to make it hard to create these districts, because they had bonding authority. They didn't want people to, create these things willy-nilly. So that's why they made it hard to dissolve them as well. But I would say many things have changed for these small communities in the last 100 years. Population loss, increasing EPA compliance costs, just to name a few. So this 2/3 of voters law was written, decades before the EPA was even in existence. The Safe Drinking Water Act wasn't created until the 1970s. So today, the tiniest water district in Missouri, serving a few hundred people, has to have the same standards as our biggest cities, the same environmental standards, daily testing, monthly DNR reporting, monitoring over nearly 100 contaminants. Today's small districts are held to the same standards as our biggest cities. People in small towns should have the same legal protections of water quality as those in big cities. But the downside to all these laws and compliance is that many small communities just can't and don't want to be in the water business anymore because of these regulations. Water is just a very different business than it was nearly 100 years ago when this 2/3 of law was passed. And it's only going to get more complicated to comply with the EPA regulations as new contaminants are regulated every year. So in terms of Sheridan County, that's kind of where this whole thing started. So back in 2023, the first water district in decades that anybody even had heard of wanted to dissolve. They came to us and said, what's the process for dissolving? We don't even know, nobody even knows how to do it. It's a court case. We worked with them to put the petition before the court. They came really close. They came 59, 65% in 2 successive elections. But they just couldn't get the 2/3 of votes needed. And now they frankly don't want to go through the process again because it is a rigorous court process to get this on the ballot until the law is changed. Things are not great, though, in Sheridan County. Just this past year, the water district there notified their customers that they'd failed to do a bacteriological test. I have a copy if you want to read it. Doesn't sound like a big deal, right? Well, it means they failed to test for E. coli. That's how serious it is there, and serious causes of water contamination. The staff there aren't bad people. They're just overworked and under-resourced, so mistakes happen. The opponents you're going to hear say, if it's so bad, why don't the voters just vote to sell the system? Well, 65% of them did, and the board doesn't want to go through the whole process again, knowing that it could possibly fail. So I think the chairman discussed a lot of the changes we made since last year. We did those to try to alleviate concerns of big water companies, investor-owned utilities taking over these districts. We gave the boards lots more power. We also put language in there to allow the proceeds of the sale to allow the court to direct those proceeds to the school district or lower people's taxes. So right now, the court doesn't have any direction to do that. So we've made a lot of improvements. This April, Pilot Knob Water District is going to be on the ballot for dissolution, just in a week or so. Stone County Water District is going to be on the ballot in November. They're very concerned that these 2/3 of voters threshold is just too high to pass. And I have letters from all those districts talking about why this is so important to them. So ultimately, this bill is about choice for water districts. They would now have the choice to approve a sale prior to it being on the ballot. The board would have the choice, I should say. They now have the choice to lower the threshold to 4/7, or they can still use the 2/3 if that's what the board thinks is in the best interest of their community. Now these water districts should have a more realistic choice. So I would say in conclusion, we've negotiated in good faith, I think, with the opponents of this for many months. Obviously, we're not there yet, as you're going to hear from opposition. I would say that something like 10% of Missouri is still on private wells. So, if they want to lower the threshold to create a water district, we're certainly open to that. It's been decades since a water district was created or dissolved, so we just want to find a way to really pass this, what we think is needed reform. Some of the questions I heard before I want to address as well. So, Senator, you asked, why would people vote against this? I would say this is more about parity. So if a water district takes over another water district, it's only a simple majority vote. If we take over a municipality, it's only a simple majority vote. So I think what we're trying to do is just even the playing field, really. If the opponents of this want to change the statutes in terms of, how they take over other water districts to raise it up to make it, more of an even playing field, we're certainly open to all that. So, like I said, we just want to find a path forward on this.
Thank you. Senator May.
Yeah, so my quick question. So this bill puts it in the hands of the board.
It's ultimately in I would say it two ways. Right now, the board, if it starts with the court process, think about it that way. So we put a petition, the voters sign a petition, it goes to before the judge. The water district board there can oppose the sale if they want right now. Generally, the court would go along with it. I mean, they're not going to go against their local board. However, they do not have veto. The board does not have veto authority. We could, I'm not saying we would, and it wouldn't be a good idea, but we could go directly to the voters, get them to sign a petition, go to the court around the board. Now the board, because of this bill, has the power to veto that process before it even gets to the court.
So they would veto the process. So right now, you do the petition, you take it to the court says yes, the board goes along with it.
They can oppose it in court.
They can oppose it in court, but it'll
Yes.
take them some time to get a petition to oppose it, right?
There would be no petition to oppose it. The board's essentially, the petition signatories are a party to the case, and then the board would be a party to the case as it is now.
Okay, so the board can oppose it
Yes.
if they don't want to, if they don't want to sell.
Yes.
They can oppose
They can do that now, yes.
Okay, they can do that now. But with this bill, it gives the board more power, is what I'm trying to say, is that in essence?
That's exactly right. It gives them veto power over the process completely.
Okay, very good. Now, the board is, how is the board picked? Is it
Yeah, they're elected
Okay,
by the
they're
community.
elected by the community. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Senator Carter.
I just appreciate the background on just trying to give you a little bit of kudos. That was a lot of really good background information, and just curious what your thoughts or opinion is on the ballot language as well. Like, how much of that has been the hurdle rather than the threshold?
Well, like I said, we've only tried it once as far as we can find in the history books over the last couple decades.
Yeah.
And it got to 65%. It's hard to know whether that would really change. I mean, the word dissolve is still in there. What we're adding to this bill is it says, yes, your water district's going to be dissolved. However, you're still going to have water because here's another company that's going to take it over. It'll help, but I think if we're going to fix one thing, we might as well just fix the whole thing. And while we've got these other water districts, especially they're going to be on the ballot soon, I think getting a bill passed is hard. And so why not just fix it all in one fell swoop?
No, I appreciate that that multi-level approach. You know as much as I do that there's some districts and water districts in my community that infrastructure is terrible right now. So I know that there is a need. Just trying to make sure that our constituents know exactly what is going on, the ballot language being one of those components, and then also making sure that their voice is, basically heard ultimately. So I appreciate your time and your testimony. Thank you.
Good morning. So first of all, there's a couple of elections coming up so next Tuesday at 8 o'clock, we're going to know what happened in a couple of water district elections.
One in Pilot Knob. And Pilot Knob is a uniquely, actually really bad situation. I mean, because their infrastructure has gotten so bad that their rates are actually higher than ours right now. That's a pretty unique situation. And so if they were to vote for the dissolution, their rates would go down. That's how bad it's gotten there.
Well, and then other customers of yours pay to fix other communities' neglect of their infrastructure.
Well, so our tariffs are not statewide. We have 2 tariffs.
So what group is Pilot Knob in?
That's outside of St. Louis.
Okay, so my constituents won't be paying for that at least.
Right.
Okay. So do you have the ability to educate people in a community? Do you have the money to educate? Because I feel like you're spending a lot of money in this building to make these changes happen. I feel like you could have a community forum or run an advertisement just to let people know. Because to me, I just find it hard to believe that if they're, like Pilot Knob, for example, they're paying more now than they would if they were Missouri American Water customers. It seems like a no-brainer, but it sounds to me like that information is not getting to the actual voters that show up on election day.
Yeah, so I would say we had a forum there last week. We had the state representative and senators send out mailings. I mean, we've certainly educated. It's a newer process for us. As I said, for so long, no districts really wanted to go through the process of dissolving. Sheridan was like the first one anybody can remember. And since then, we've learned how to educate voters. We did it there. I think we're doing a better job now. But these are really small communities. And
yeah, I've been to Pilot Knob. There's a lot of good hiking and outdoor activities there, so I can kind of visualize how few voters probably show up.
Yeah. I think we had 5 come to our town hall.
And did the media cover any of the messaging or anything?
Yeah, it was in the local paper. Yeah,
Okay.
by law, we have to post it in the local paper.
Yeah, but I mean like afterwards where they were talking about that their rates would actually go down and things like that.
I can send you the articles about it, yeah.
Okay. I guess, I think that voters are smart, and so I still just struggle, like if, you mentioned a community that had E. coli in their water, I just don't, to me, that is a compelling enough reason to show up to vote and make a decision that would help get safe water to a community. So I feel like there might be something else going on here, and I'm not sure what.
Yeah, I mean, as the sponsor said, these are very low turnout elections, and usually there are situations where it just takes a group of friends of people who work there to kill it. I would say here's a good point though. So back to the question about Sheridan County and E. coli. And I'll be happy to share this with you afterwards. What they actually notified their water district customers of, it just said they failed to make a bacteriological test. It's hard to know what that really means. And so, they would have to delve into the details of DNR's website to figure out, it was actually E. coli they didn't test for. It's not a fault of their district. I mean, there's like 2 or 3 people that work there, and they're trying to run hundreds of tests. And so it's hard for those people to really understand how bad I think some of these systems have gotten.
Okay, but in theory anyway, your company is able to spend money to educate voters.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we do.
You don't have a prohibition on like...
No,
okay.
no, and we're doing that in pilot and out in Mao, and we'll do it in Stone County, and we
Okay.
do it when, we take over a municipal system, but yes, absolutely we do.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next in favor, and if everybody could be brief and not restate things, that'd be great.
Chair, members of the committee, Matt Thompson here on behalf of Liberty Utilities to testify in favor of House Bill 2397. Those who went before me explained it well, so I won't belabor the point, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Matt. Next in favor, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jared Hankinson, representing Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We'll just add one point. This committee has heard me say time and time again, reliability of utilities is of the utmost importance for Missouri's business community, and we believe that this legislation is a path forward to reinforce that reliability, maintaining local control. Happy to go on record in support and take any questions from the committee.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Next
Thank
in
you very
favor,
much.
please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. John Hensley on behalf of the Missouri Energy Development Association. Just to go on the record in support of allowing these districts to elect a somewhat more achievable threshold for dissolving and selling and in a manner that is fiscally responsible and ensures continuation of services to the residents of the district. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you. Anybody else in favor? First person in opposition, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Trent Watson, registered lobbyist here on behalf of Missouri Rural Water Association. I'd like to first point out that you didn't see any water districts testifying in support of this legislation. We met with Missouri American Water around veto session. They presented this bill to us. It was myself, my board president, and lobbyists with the Municipal Utilities Association and St. Charles Water District Number 2. We all took this language back to our boards, our membership. We discussed it. We couldn't get off of lowering anything below the 2/3 threshold. That's what it takes to create a water district. We think that warrants what it takes to dissolve it. We did look at the ballot language and said it is reasonable to expand that ballot language because, yes, if you're going into an April election and maybe you've got a mayor's race or something else on your mind and you read, do I want to dissolve the water district? Maybe a little bit more information is warranted. But allowing the board to lower the threshold on its own just adds a layer of controversy into an already confrontational situation because it's assuming you've got a plurality of people. Like you've got 5 members on a board and 3 of them say, let's sell the water district, and by the way, let's vote to sell it at a lower threshold, right? So that's just kind of an unfair scenario to throw that out there. So we think it's absolutely reasonable and a good compromise to expand the ballot language, but the 2/3 threshold is where we'd like to see it stay. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? See. Senator Mosby.
Yeah. Hello. So why do you feel that they should have to get 67% versus 54%?
Like I said, that's
because that seems pretty high.
Well, not when you're considering that it's 2/3 of the voters that show up for the election. It's not registered voters. It's who shows up that day. And we're talking about selling a multi-million-dollar asset.
And you said this is in the April elections?
It could be in an April election, sure.
Okay. Well, that's normally when we do get low voter turnout, so I can understand that. And with it being a lower voter turnout, having to get 67 would be even harder because it's a lower turnout. So I'm not understanding why you feel that it should stay at 67 because that's, to me, a hard reach. None of us get elected. No. have to reach that.
Well, it's a hard reach to create that water district at that 2/3. And so it should be equally as difficult to unwind that process as well.
Well, I'm in agreement with the bill. I support it. I don't think you should make something so unaccessible to the voters, but that's my opinion.
Any other questions? So earlier, somebody said there's a dissolution vote coming up in November, so I guess the board or the local election people could put it on any ballot they want?
I would assume so. I really don't.
Maybe August and November of even numbered years would be best. That'd be a better turnout. Anyway, any other questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else in opposition, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Fred Darling today representing the Association of Water Districts, which are small rural districts in and around Kansas City. We would like to go on record in opposition. I know this bill has been around for a while, but like the previous witness, we believe that 2/3 of the voters, if they think that the system is so bad that it needs to be sold, should be sufficient, and it does take 2/3 to create it. So we appreciate all the other changes that Missouri American made because the bill did get better, but we have a fundamental problem with the 2/3 vote. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Senator Mosley.
So you only have a problem with the amount of votes you have to receive? That's the only issue you have with the bill?
Yes, ma'am. So we think it's 2/3 of the voters that vote in the election, and if things are so bad within the water districts, we don't understand what the problem is. And as Mr. Watson said, there is nobody from the water district down here testifying in favor of the bill. And I would like to have had that water district down here, both the person that voted in favor or maybe voted against, because then we'd find out what really was going on with that situation.
Okay.
Senator May.
Go ahead.
Hello, how are you this morning?
I am fine. How are you, Senator?
I'm good. So listen, I'm wrestling with this, because I think I voted no last year, but I got to check that. But the question for me is, why isn't it that we don't want the power to rest with the locally elected board to decide the threshold?
Right. What I would say to you that the locally elected board is not here testifying in favor of the bill, and that is the Water District Board.
Well, they might not have wanted to come up here. They might didn't know about it. They might didn't want to make the drive.
I understand. But if your
water had to work.
If your situation was so egregious that your water was bad, you would think that they would want to. I think there's just more going on to it with this water district, and that's the reason why they can't get the vote. I don't know exactly what the cause is.
But we don't even get elected by that higher threshold. And I know to create it,
right.
It's a higher threshold to create it. In the dissolution of it, you don't think getting more than 50% of the vote says that the majority is in agreement?
Like I said, I don't understand the specifics of what are going on with this water district, but I would think that if your water was so bad and your situation was so bad that you could get 2/3 of the people that voted in that election to vote for dissolution.
Okay.
I think we might find out, though, next Saturday or Tuesday. It sounds like one is up, and we'll see what happens with that election.
Any questions, Senator Carter?
I'm curious if there's any rural water district board members here to testify in opposition.
There are not, no. But
Why? How come?
Well, we represent them, so we are part of that association.
But if you think they're passionate about not making sure the threshold doesn't drop, that they'd be up here testifying.
Well, that's right. But I was thinking that it should be the water district that couldn't get the 2/3 vote, that if we heard from them what the actual issue was, we'd have a better understanding of what was going on and whether this was necessary or not.
I'd also like to see the citizens who are going to be impacted by this vote to see what their opinion is. I mean, if they're concerned about it, my big question is, how much do the citizens know, right, about the water? When you have the ballot language, it is very vague.
No, I agree with the ballot language change. I'm in agreement with that, and I did say that the bill got better. We have a fundamental issue with it takes 2/3 to create it. It should take 2/3 to dissolve it.
And again, we can have that conversation, but for you to attack and say, well, nobody's here to testify because they want the same could be said about the rural board.
Well, but it's different than having Missouri American come and telling you what a rural water district wants, and then people that represent the association.
And if you're changing this statewide, you think that there would be a bit of investment to make
Right.
sure that that doesn't happen?
So I agree. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next in opposition, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Tim Green. I'm here on behalf of St. Charles Public Water District 2, and we are in opposition. We were part of the discussions earlier and have no problem, as Mr. Watson said, with the changes of the language on the ballot. It's just the 2/3, 4/7 that the board has problems with.
Okay, Tim, I'm sorry, I missed who you're representing?
St. Charles Public Water District
Okay,
2.
thank you. Any other questions? Huh? I don't. Senator May?
Are you a board member?
No, I'm the registered lobbyist for the St. Charles Public Water District.
Very good. Did they know, your board members know that this was going on today?
Yes,
And did they sent you in to testify on their behalf?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Senator May?
Yeah, my question is this. So they too have a problem with giving the board, the local elected board, the power to decide the threshold for the vote?
They
Because I
feel,
think that's what this bill is doing, giving the local board the local power to decide the threshold for the vote.
they feel, is the previous opposition witnesses stated, that it was created by 2/3. They'd like to continue the dissolution by 2/3 as well of the vote. But putting the language on the ballot that clearly states the opportunity of who will provide them water, we have no problem with that portion.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Tim. Next in opposition, please come forward. And, no.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Ernie C., AC Dinoff, State Public Advocate. I submitted my testimony online on the Senate portal. Did you receive it? Okay. You know, this is a huge issue to me, and I'm very much opposed to HB 2397. Back on January 21st, I heavily testified against this bill in the House Utilities Committee. This issue of dissolving a district is a huge, very crucial decision to a number of people of a public water district. As you all know, water is a basic essential of human living. It's a community essential, and the community put the investment and took the 2/3 of vote to create the district under the state statutes of creating a water district. I feel the 2/3 is needed to be intact, and I also would ask that the committee look into making mandatory November ballot for any dissolutions or any tax increases of any district in terms of bonding. We should not be making this easy. We should not be lessening the importance of this dissolution. As a matter of fact, I'd like to amend the bill to increase to 3/4 of the vote because I take it very seriously. The district needs to put forth facts, information, and details about why they need to make a dissolution of the district. It shouldn't be about profits, and profits come into play here. I see Missouri American Water approaching water districts in cities all across our state because they're trying to gain a bigger bite into the apple, a bigger profitability. And as a matter of fact, people's water rates increase approximately 30% because they're a corporate model, and that's what their profit margin is. This is special legislation. Let's call it what it is. It's special legislation. It's being driven by one worldwide water company who's trying to make a bigger impact on the United States and the state of Missouri. Public water districts are to charge for delivery and upkeep of the water system, and they do it at the cost and the maintenance to do such. This is a serious, serious consideration and decision. And as the previous speaker for Public Water District Number 2, which is in St. Charles County where I reside, I would have a huge problem if the district was put up for a vote and if it wasn't at least 2/3, but I advocate for a 3/4 vote because I take it very seriously that we shouldn't be giving up the rights. Not only that, but the people of these water districts are going to pay an increase approximately 30% for the profit of a private water company. For those reasons and many other reasons, I highly oppose HB 2397, and I hope that this legislation is killed right here, right now, in this committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator.
Would you say this is a glass half full or a glass half empty type issue?
I think it's for one selective water district, and we haven't heard from that water district that came here to testify today. And we didn't hear from them in January either at the House Utilities Committee.
Sounds like you're a glass half empty on this proposal. Sorry, I had to get the pun in there. We've been talking about water for about 45 minutes. Had to throw it out there. Sheraton County is a county north of me, and that's one of the issues I heard on the ballot language was people are going, so if we vote for this, we're not going to have water. And so I think at the crux of it, that's what's trying to get addressed. It sounds like from both sides that we might be able to come to a middle ground agreement of some sort. So I look forward to working with all sides to figure that out.
I just agree that you shouldn't be taking it out of the people's hands and putting it into an elected board of 5 members and leaving it up to the courts. I think it should be left up to the people.
Yeah, that's my question here. So what I'm hearing is that no one trusts the local board to make the right decision. Because what this bill seems like it's doing is giving the power to the local board to decide the threshold of the vote. But no one trusts the people that they elected to the board.
Well, I'll tell you what is in our district in St. Charles County. There's 5 members, but then they have a subsidiary that they decided to create a shell company called East Central Missouri Water and Sewer Authority, and they pay those people, including 2 of their friends that they appoint to the board, $1,800 base salary. When the state statute says they get $100 or $200 per meeting, they're paying themselves an $1,800 base salary every month, which is like $18,000. And then they're paying themselves $200 for a meeting, catered meals, and then they go from East Central Missouri Water and Sewer Authority to the Water District Board meeting a half an hour later at another address where they don't have employees at this one office, and they pay themselves another $200 for a meeting. And then coincidentally, they forget that they a contract, and they have a online meeting for another $200, and they're paying themselves $25,000 salary.
Artie, I think that it's time for the auditor to come in and audit. Because it seems like they audit all of the Democratic cities. I want them to audit St. Charles.
I've been before this committee year after year about St. Charles County Water, the Public Water District Number 2. They're taking advantage of the citizens.
Thank you. Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you, Artie. Anybody else in opposition? Please come forward.
Lisa Panett with Armorvine. We are against diluting the vote of the people. We also believe that on the other side, the receiving districts should also have a vote. Because as Senator McCreary had already kind of brought up, what happens to the receiving districts and what about their rates when we're taking in all these other dissolved districts? I mean, it's plausible that those rates are also going to go up. So both sides should actually have a vote in this matter, and we're against this. And I would also say, based upon even if Arnie was going to have an audit, you guys already gave them authority to do all that outside of their meetings. And so all that he did was actually legal in St. Charles County because you gave them that authority last year in a Senate bill to drive in all those funds inside and outside of their duties as board members.
Any questions for this witness? Thank you for your testimony. Anybody else in opposition, please come forward. Anybody for information purposes?
Greetings, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Earl Scissors with Missourians for a Balanced Energy Future. I must have missed my window in support, so I apologize. But Missourians for a Balanced Energy Future is a nonprofit organization that supports energy infrastructure projects as a means of economic development for the state. So I just wanted to provide some information. There's been a lot of questions about, do some of these water boards support this legislation or have an opinion, and I will provide document communications from some of these board members from these areas, Pilot Knob, Chariton County, as well as Stone County, where there are board members that support this this change. It's really up to those boards, and to my membership, it is about clean water and upgraded infrastructure. That's the most important piece here for the health of Missouri citizens.
Thank you. Yeah, I clearly had said opposed, switched from support to opposed. So anyway, any questions for this witness? I hope not. Thank you for your testimony. That will conclude the testimony on House Bill 2397. Next up will be Senate Bill 1411. And folks, I've got a hard stop at noon. So like I said earlier, the opponents and proponents, if you'd get your best, most well-informed witness to come up first, I'll give them a lot of latitude. After that, we're going to start moving through them pretty quick. So, Senator Schroer, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, State Senator Nick Schroer, presenting Senate Bill 1411, the Electrical Choice and Competition Law. I'm going to try to be brief in my statement, but also be thorough. I've got a couple of written statements here on what this bill actually does and the changes that we've made. Most notably, this is a forward piece of legislation that puts Missouri families, workers, and businesses back in control of their energy costs and stability. For too long, Missourians have lived under a system where they only have one option for electricity, one provider, one rate structure, and very little to say in the matter. That model may have made sense decades ago, but in today's economy, the current monopoly model limits innovation, suppresses competition, and ultimately drives up costs for the very people that we serve without the people having a say. Senate Bill 1411 changes that. It opens up Missouri's electricity market to competition, not recklessly, but responsibly. It ensures that our existing utilities continue to own and operate transmission and distribution infrastructure while requiring them to provide equal and open access so that new retail electric suppliers can come into our state and compete to serve other customers. In simple terms, the wires, the transmission, all of that stays the same, but Missourians gain the power to choose who supplies their electricity. And we don't flip a switch overnight like some states have done. This bill lays out a deliberate and thoughtful transition. First, within 24 months, commercial and industrial customers, the job creators of our state, will gain the ability to choose their electric provider. Soon thereafter, residential customers will follow on a structured timeline, ensuring that lessons are learned from states that did not do this properly, that experienced too much government meddling into the free market, and protections are firmly put in place before full implementation. Critically, the bill protects our most vulnerable citizens, as energy assistance customers will not lose access to their benefits. The Public Service Commission, the PSC, is empowered to create aggregation programs as well and safeguards to ensure that no one is left behind within this transition. Moreover, 1411 ensures that every electric supplier must be licensed. The Public Service Commission will actively monitor the market to prevent unlawful practices. And if bad actors emerge, which they always do, the Commission refers those cases to the Attorney General for enforcement, including civil penalties and damages. In summation, I just want to add a couple more things. Additionally, we established the Office of Retail Market Development and Oversight within this bill to ensure that long-term stability, transparency, consumer protection is there as the market evolves. Competition drives innovation. Innovation drives efficiency. Efficiency plus these open markets will drive lower costs and better serve Missourians. States that have embraced energy choice have seen increased product offerings, renewable energy options, and pricing plans tailored to their customers' needs. There's no reason that Missouri should be left behind. At its core, 1411 asks a simple question: should Missourians have the right to choose their electricity provider? I believe the answer is yes. You have a position that I transferred. Walmart could not be here today, so Walmart's got their position that I've shared with the committee. And look, opponents are asking us to trust a monopoly forever. This bill says that we should trust Missourians instead to make their own choices with safeguards in place. So with that, I know there are a lot of people against it. I think it's going to be a consent bill at the end of the day. At least I'll work hard to make sure that happens, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or turn it over to the experts that are here.
Okay. Does anybody have questions for Senator? Senator May.
Of course, I got a question. So today, for the record, we for the free market.
Always for the free market.
You know I'm gonna have to bring that back to you on the floor, right?
I encourage our discussions on the floor.
So, I've seen this change before, I remember when Southwestern Bell Telephone, went, in order to get into long distance, they had to break up the phone monopoly. So my question is, how will the infrastructure be handled? Who maintains the infrastructure? Because I remember that we still had to service and maintain the infrastructure, and other companies who were, using those lines and stuff didn't have to do that. So I'm trying to figure out, the infrastructure has already been laid. Does your bill lay out that, or who's going to lay out that part of the transition?
We've got several experts here today to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the states that have tried this. There are several states that have done this very well. There are several states that have had too much government involvement. But essentially, we lay out the structured plan. We allow the PSC to monitor a lot of these transition plans. But essentially, all of those transmission lines are going to stay the same. And the PSC's involvement in that is going to make sure we've learned lessons not only from the implementation of this bill the wrong way in other states, but even in other industries when we're breaking up monopolies. Look, big change is hard. These bold decisions are going to be hard, but essentially it's something that I stand behind, is embracing the free market and putting consumers back in the driver's seat. But the PSC is going to have to be there to essentially make sure this is done in the right way so we don't have the same issues that other states have had.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to figure out who, will the current utility be compensated in reference to the infrastructure? So I want to see how that looks in your.
Yeah, we've got a lot of that laid out. If you have any questions after the experts come up here and kind of get more in depth with that, if you have any more questions, I always welcome discussion on the floor, or you and I just a couple doors down.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Senator. How many people? Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Mosley.
No. I just wanted to thank you for bringing this bill up. I do think we need some competition. And like she said, when it happened with SBC, I think it was SBC at the time, it was great for customers because they kept lowering rates so we could keep switching back and forth. So I appreciate this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. How many people want to testify in favor of this bill? How many in opposition? Okay, and so like I said, at noon we have a hard stop. So in an attempt to be fair, I'm going to alternate between proponents and opponents and go through them that way. That way everybody, at least if we have to chop it off, gets to be heard a little bit. So first person in favor that's well-spoken, please come forward. That's probably a terrible thing to say. Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair Searpoint, and members of the committee for hearing this bill and the opportunity for us to speak. My name is Abby Foster. I think I've met with all of you at least once. We represent the Retail Energy Advancement League. Yes, ma'am. Which represents retail electric suppliers. Many of our members also own power generation and invest in building power plants as well, not with ratepayer dollars, using private capital. Our members serve over 25 million customers across the country and own and operate over 150 gigawatts of energy. Just to put that in perspective, in Missouri it's about 9 gigawatts of energy, and that's just from 7 companies. Even in the states that still have vertically integrated markets that have monopolies, independent power producers make investments, although small investments because the only customer they can serve is the vertically integrated utility. In Missouri, it's not alone compared to other states that are facing a similar crisis of not enough energy to meet current demand and future projected load growth, but also the issue of so many of your power generation assets are scheduled for retirement and need replacement. So even if you take load growth and large energy users out of the equation of new load growth, you still have to replace the existing assets that are scheduled for retirement. Almost 40% of your power that serves Missouri today is scheduled for retirement in the next 10 years, and that comes with a hefty price tag. Right now in Missouri, the system relies on utilities to build the generation, recover those costs from consumers, and they get a guaranteed rate of return and return on equity for every piece of steel that goes in the ground, For every amount of planning and the cost to plan, all of that is recovered from ratepayers. Historically, that was fine for Missouri because you had a lot of plants that were built in the 70s that were coal assets, nuclear. Those were low cost and they served you well for a long time. Most of those costs are paid off on those assets, but some of them are coming to the end of their life cycle. And so for the first time ever in Missouri, for a lot of your constituents, they're seeing what it looks like for the utilities to build and for them to be billed for it. You'll see in slide 6 in the packet that I gave you Missouri's price performance over the last decade, and Missouri ranks 5th worst for price increase in the country. Now, we use price increase in percentages rather than price per kilowatt hour because every state has different policy that goes into making what your price per kilowatt hour and rates are. Every state commission does rate making different. There's different policies. Massachusetts, for example, has a 65% renewable portfolio standard. Missouri has 15%. They all have different programs for energy efficiency and low income. What your rates were in 2008 compared to your neighboring states and what percentage have they increased over that same period is a way to look apples to apples over how well is your state performing within your current rate structure. And Missouri has the 5th fastest rate increase in the country. Missouri is facing a period now, even though your utilities have not built much over the last 10 years and your rates are increasing that fast, of having to build more than 10,000 megawatts in the next 10 years. I've included the utilities' IRPs in their own IRPs of what they have planned for that, and those are laid out. Evergy and Ameren's are listed in there of the assets that they plan to build over the next 10 years. 10,000 megawatts, 65% of which is renewable, and 34% is natural gas, 66% and 34%. Under the current model, ratepayers will be asked to finance that, plus the utility's guaranteed rate of return. If projects are delayed, if they go over on cost, that is still covered by the ratepayer no matter what. There's another approach, and we have the benefit of looking back on the last 25 years of the states that did fully restructure. In your packets, you'll see a map of the U.S. The states that are green are the states where the utilities do not own the power generation, they don't build power plants, they don't sell electricity for profit. Those states restructured in the late 90s because they were facing a really similar situation that's facing Missouri today. Significant costs to build power plants, unsustainable rate increases, and the need for accountability and competition to put downward pressure on rates. And so a lot of those states restructured then. It's the exact same situation today. And so there's legislation similar to this that's been introduced in 7 or 8 states in the country that will open up access to allow all or some customers to be able to choose their electric supplier and allow private companies to serve those customers and build power plants without ratepayers having to fund it today or tomorrow, and if the energy is not needed in the future, fund that asset for its entire life cycle. This policy aligns with affordability for households, reliability for the grid, and economic competitiveness so that you can retain the businesses that are currently here and attract new businesses to the state. At a time of scale, investment is unprecedented, and continuing down the current path that you're on in Missouri would cause ratepayers to have to leave the state for the current large businesses and for households to not be able to fund it. I also included a table in there that lists out what has currently been approved by the PSC and is projected and pending in front of the PSC for costs for over the last year. It's over $5 billion worth of asks, where they haven't built anything in the last 10 years, and now for the first time, and that has not even come into your constituents' electric bills yet. For the first time ever, ratepayers are going to see the impacts of what it looks like to have the utilities build and build them, plus their guaranteed rate of return. And so we ask you to consider restructuring the market to allow for private companies to come in and build and provide customers with options and let competition put downward pressure on price.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Senator McCray.
Thank you for the presentation and for the handout. Do you have states or know of states where there's choice just as relates to like larger customers, like industrial? Is there a way to kind of
thread the needle on it? Sure. The states that are yellow on the map that I provided you are states that the utilities still own the power plants and generation of electricity. They still get a guaranteed rate of return, but a certain percentage of customers is allowed to procure electricity outside of the utility, either industrial, whether it's by size, like a threshold of megawatts that they use each year, or if it's a certain cap. So Michigan allows 10% of the customers to procure outside of the utility. That was put in place in 2008. There's been a line of 5,000 customers waiting to get into that cap. So it still has the structure of a vertically integrated model, but allows competition to help meet the crisis of today. So that's a partial market structure, and those are the yellow states.
Okay, and then I haven't read the letter yet because we got a lot of handouts, but so we got a letter from Walmart Energy, and they talk about they've got 150 in the state of Missouri. They have 156 stores and then 5 distribution centers within that hybrid model or that partially restructured model. Would there be a way for an entity like Walmart, even though like it's not like they have just one giant facility somewhere like an automotive plant, but would there be a way for them to still participate in choice, even though they've got 150 stores and 5 distribution centers?
Yes, there's actually there's legislation that's been introduced in 6 states this session. That's exactly what you're talking about. So it would be one of those yellow states where it's still a vertically integrated utility model, but certain percentage of customer can procure outside. And so it's a 1 megawatt threshold. But customers like Walmart, other customers that support legislation like that, Marriott, 7-Eleven, Costco, companies that wouldn't hit the 1 megawatt threshold on their own, but the ability to aggregate all of their stores in the state can. So they would be allowed to do an aggregation program either with all of their sites and their meters in the state or through a program like the Retailers Association, or I think you mentioned previously your parents are in the aggregation program with the Farm Bureau.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, something like that where they put all of the load together, and so they would definitely hit the 1 megawatt threshold doing that.
Okay. And then when we, as a legislature, approved the supplemental budget, whenever that was, I losing track of time, a few weeks ago, the state government has had a tremendous, almost every department had to come to us to ask for more money to pay their electric bills. Would there be a way for the state government to be able to do something like that so we could save taxpayer money?
I actually have a ton of examples from governmental programs, and we actually just put for the U.S. Department of Energy a program, training for them for all of their state governmental entities to train them on how to shop for electricity in the states where they have the ability, both in the yellow states and green states. And so they just did a training program with all of their government entities on that. So yes, they can. So they can aggregate all of their load together of all the government sites. School districts do it. So the New Jersey School Board Association aggregates all of the schools in their district, and they bid their entire load to get the best offer possible. So there's lots of options in a competitive market, but you have options because there's lots of different sellers and variety and innovation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Berger.
We've met before, like you said, in offices, and we've talked back and forth. But can you tell me which one it is? You all have information that says in the choice markets it's cheaper and the rates haven't gone up as much. The IOUs have information that says in the choice markets it's more expensive, the rates go up more. This is the one thing that, like, people ask me, like, where do you get frustrated the most about something in Jefferson City? And I say, well, honestly, whenever we're in a committee hearing and one side says something and you're like, oh man, that's really good. And then the next side gets up and they say everything they just said is a complete lie. Here's the truth. And then I'm sitting here going, which one is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when I look at the numbers and when I do my research, like it sounds really good. When we've talked about this, it sounds good in principle. But at the end of the day, as we get more and more into it, when people get home, they want to flip that switch on. They want the lights to come on. I was hot today. I was turning that air conditioning switch on as fast as I could when I got in my office today, so I quit sweating. Like, I want my air conditioner working. Reliability. I mean, Texas was a choice market. You read about Texas. I guess my main question. I want to speak to Texas. When you look at that, it said it cost the Texas ratepayer like $22 billion from, I don't remember what the year time frame was, from like, I think it was like 08 to 12 or 2002 to 2012 to switch over to a choice market. And now they're talking about going back in and adding in safeguards. Can you just speak to that, and then I guess we'll figure out where the truth lies and who actually has cheaper rates?
Sure. So for the data that there was Consumer Energy Alliance is an organization that published recently in the Missouri Independent, and they published a report that was commissioned by Exelon, a utility, and it's public that it was commissioned by Exelon, a utility, and it talks about the electric rates and shows price increases in the states that are the vertically integrated and competitive, but they used cents rather than percentage increase, and we've talked about that before. So for example, it had in there that Ohio was over on this side increasing rates by X number of cents, and then Missouri was down here increasing by X number of cents. But if you look at the percentage of increase, Ohio's rates are different than what Missouri's rates were to start with. And the percentage of increase actually has Ohio and Missouri being the same percentage increase, but they're on different sides of the graph that it shows. So when you look at data, sometimes people use data to tell the story they want to tell. When we're looking at the EIA data, we want it to reflect what's in the best interest of ratepayers. It still has my data visualized against someone else's data. And so what I can say is we have to, in this information age, go back to our firsthand experience. And I will give you my firsthand experience as a Pennsylvania resident who has shopped since I got my first apartment in 2008. I have never paid the utility rate for the default service for electric costs because I've always been able to find something cheaper. And my electric bill in Pennsylvania has not doubled, and I've heard from many constituents in Missouri that their electric bills have doubled. What has increased on my electric bill in Pennsylvania is the poles and wires charge, which continues to be maintained as a utility monopoly, which still would in this legislation as well. But the generation supply portion of my bill has not increased in that way. And if it does, I can switch suppliers. And there are offers below the utility default service rate in Pennsylvania right now in every single utility service territory. And I switch suppliers. There's no penalty for me to do it unless you sign up for something that has a penalty associated with it. So competition has been able to maintain the generation capacity charge portion of my electric bill. So that's just my firsthand experience. I'll say that under oath, witness. I mean, you have to go back to what your firsthand experience it is because I understand the challenge of hearing data from both sides. I'm happy to explain the methodology of the data that we use and how we represent it anytime, and I believe that it's really the best representation of the data.
Thank you. Senator May.
Good morning. So it all sounds simple in a way. Create competition, But when we're doing that, what chaos would it provide for my seniors, for individuals who, who are not good with the change or who wouldn't know how to shop carriers, or understand, how to do all of this change? And who's going to, how is it going to be easier for the Public Service Commission or the state to basically control or protect consumers? Because right now, we have a problem with protecting consumers with what we got right now.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So I'm trying to figure out, in this area, because it looks, sometimes it can get chaotic. How do we, in your firsthand experience, quorum that for the ordinary citizens and who don't know how to shop electricity? Because they don't.
Included in the legislation, so there's costs that are paid by the suppliers that want to enter the state and do business that are paid to the commission, and part of those costs go to the Office of Competitive Market Oversight, the retail office. And some of that goes for customer education and awareness to also enable them to create the website, and I included a screen grab of the Texas shopping website in the packet that I gave you. When I go to shop every month, I put in my zip code in Pennsylvania. This is a state shopping website managed by my Public Utility Commission. I get all of my different offers. I sort them by whether I want fixed rate, whether I want renewable, long-term contract, short-term contract. For customers who don't want to do that, the legislation also allows for aggregation programs, which is what we were talking about at the Farm Bureau. So your constituents, and there's actually a supplier here today that specifically supplies for aggregation programs, that they work with either the town or the retailers association, or if there's a certain community group, they can work with them. And they can aggregate the amount of electricity that everyone uses that's in that aggregation and bid it out into the market. And they would just be a member of that aggregation and they wouldn't have to think about anything. It would essentially be a broker on their behalf as a big group. So if it's seniors, it could be an organization that represents the seniors that's bidding on behalf of that senior group. What it does do for low-income customers so that they can still benefit from the market is it aggregates the load of everyone who's on energy income assistance so that they can bid that load into the market and get the best rate possible, so they can still benefit from competition but still have whatever's the cheapest available. So the aggregation is a great option for customers who want to just set it and forget it. And typically those aggregation contracts are 3-year contracts, so there's a lot of price stability. The rate's not going to go up during that period. And at the end of the period, the broker who manages the aggregation negotiates and gets bids from all the different suppliers again. So that's a set it and forget it option for the customer who doesn't want to shop. I like to shop. I shop every 6 months, but I shop more regularly than most people do.
Councilman Henderson?
Just one quick question, because I know we've got to get going. Those aggregate groups, how do they compare with the market we've got right now?
So it depends. So there's not an aggregation in Missouri right now. But in Ohio, there's aggregation in Massachusetts, and oftentimes because they're locking in load for it's a 3-year fixed rate, oftentimes they're locking that in at a rate. Rates are going up in every state no matter what, and so they're able to lock in a lower rate for the long-term trajectory. But there's someone from Good Energy here, and he'll be able to really dive into the aggregation programs.
So you're saying they'll still save money with that?
Yeah, the aggregation often are really good savings. So in Massachusetts, for example, rates went up in Massachusetts for a number of different reasons, but the customers who had enrolled in an aggregation program or who were with a supplier, they had a 3-year term that was like an 8 cent for, I think it was Waltham, Massachusetts. Rates went up for the utility rate, the default service rate was 24 cents. And so they had an 8 cent rate for 3 years while the utility rates had already gone up because they were in an aggregation. The thing that's the benefit of suppliers is if the market has volatility and you're in a fixed rate contract, it doesn't matter if the market's volatile for me as the customer because I've entered into a fixed rate contract with a supplier. Right now, the utilities in Missouri, when they're purchasing from the market on behalf of their ratepayers, if the market changes on price, if something happens like Winter Storm Uri or the war in Ukraine and price of natural gas were very volatile, they have the ability through the Public Service Commission to come back and recover those costs from ratepayers through a fuel adjustment clause. In competitive markets, when they're buying and selling from the market, if the market shifts, that supplier's the one that loses their shirt. They've entered into an agreement with that customer. And so it shields you from the volatility of the market. So long-term contracts at a time when rates are heading in an upward trajectory are really good. And most of the time, commercial and industrial customers will enter into 3-year, 5-year contracts, and they get price stability from that.
Okay, well, I've got one final question. Is PSC involved with the rates on this competitive side of things in these states?
Only for default service that the utility provides if customers don't shop.
Okay, so the utilities, the providers, the generators are left to their own as far as setting rates and trying to entice people.
Free market, yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Now, trying to be fair, with the first person come forward that opposes this bill, I'll try to give you as much time as we gave that witness, and then we're going to shut it down maybe and move along a little better.
Just for the best spoken or best looking?
I've
covered either way.
I don't see either. But you'll have to do.
Thank you for that warm welcome, Mr. Chairman. Jason Klent, the Senior Director of External Affairs at Evergy in Kansas City, and proud to be here today to represent our over 5,000 employees. I'll make a couple quick points and then I'll take your questions. But the promise of deregulation to lower rates simply has not happened. The House sponsor of this legislation conceded as much in an interview a week ago or a month ago. So deregulation began in earnest in the early 90s. You remember the name Enron. It was enabled by deregulation. There are about 13 states that are fully deregulated. I'm glad the proponents brought up Illinois. I used the best source we have on rates, which is the Energy Information Agency, EIA, to look it up. On your handout, there's a direct comparison to Illinois. Residential and industrial rates pay more than Missouri does. In fact, that has been true in every year that is shown, with the exception of 2012. And according to Wells Fargo, which is also on your handout and not a source funded by anyone but Wells Fargo is simply interested in tracking that for their investors. You'll see that Missouri is in the bottom 10 of price increases over the last 5 years. Illinois pushing up to the top 10. I have no doubt that these large companies they're sophisticated enough to go shop for and get a better deal. There is no doubt about that in my mind. But you know who doesn't? Your constituents. And why would that be? In a time of low supply and high demand, simple economics tells you that energy prices on the market have skyrocketed. The regulated market protects customers from the wild price that we've seen. Today, after 25 years, that gap still remains, and it's undeniable. Simply put, rates are higher in deregulated states. That's shown on the back of your handout that shows the comparison between regulated and deregulated states. And in fact, the trend since the 1990s has been to re-regulate. That is, deregulation has been such a disaster that states have started to reverse themselves. In Montana, 5 years after deregulating and selling off those generation assets, Montanans bought them back. Why? Because cheap electricity from dams was being sold to Pennsylvania rather than in Montana. You no longer have a captive market, and generation being created here in Missouri can be sold anywhere. Again, understand that generation generated in Missouri does not have to be sold here. It can be sold on the national market for whatever the price will bear, whatever the market will bear. Arizona, California, Nevada, Michigan, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Virginia are all states that have suspended, reduced, or repealed their deregulation dreams. In fact, in 2018, voters in Nevada overwhelmingly crushed deregulation on the ballot. Proponents of deregulation love to tout Texas as a model. It's unique because the state is regulated and some of it is deregulated. Texas is blessed with an abundance of natural gas and has a higher percentage of that, their supply mix, than we do. Yet even in Texas, the part of the state that is regulated has lower prices than those are not regulated. Speaking of Texas, deregulation would mean the end of baseload power plants. You'll be left with more solar and wind generation. Just as Texas learned during Winter Storm Uri, you can't run a grid without an appropriate backup for wind that doesn't blow or sun doesn't shine. The proponent mentioned fixed cost contracts. That would be great if you have a fixed cost contract when Winter Storm Uri hit. Most of the people in Texas didn't, and they ended up paying astronomical prices for energy because when in a deregulated market, when energy spikes, you pay for it. So what you asked a question, Mr. Chairman, about what would happen to the PSC, and yes, there would still be a role for roll wire, and I can't say it right, for poles and wires, but that isn't the end of regulation. We'll still be regulated, instead of in Jefferson City, we'll be regulated out of Little Rock, Arkansas, in our case, as a member of the Southwest Power Pool, or NERC, FERC, and the alphabet soup of other regulated industries. So finally, the impact on consumers is worth mentioning. You see a huge increase in fraud and consumer protection complaints in every state where this is done. What we see in deregulated territories is confusion. Think about credit card or cable marketing. Companies compete with low-cost offers, and then electricity skyrockets after a short time. Your constituents, usually the poor and elderly, will be the ones left to sort through competing claims and offers to try and keep their lights on. I can tell you from personal experience, my parents are getting elderly. My dad bought a cooler because the telemarketer called him the other day. You'll be shocked to learn that the cooler didn't arrive. And so this is a ripe market that gets exploited. So this committee is considering wholesale change in how we generate and deliver power. The scale of disruption that you were talking about, you should not take lightly. It affects your constituents greatly. Again, I have no concern for the Walmarts and the Costcos and the other folks who are big and sophisticated. They'll do just fine. But folks who don't have that savvy, I think the proponent said she checks and changes her bill every month or looks at that. That's not what people do. People pay their bill. They don't want to get in and work on this stuff. So I think we need to be careful here about pretending that this is something that it's not. It is going to hurt reliability and it's going to hurt affordability here in Missouri. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you. I think the time of use brouhaha we had a year or two ago is proof of some of that. Let me ask you something, because with investor-owned utilities, when I pay my bill, a certain amount of the fixed costs are lined out. I mean, they have a line on my bill that says for fixed cost. And then the usage it's built in there too, right?
That's right. You're paying a part of fixed costs through a volumetric.
Say you buy, just for simple math, you buy a kilowatt of electricity for 13 cents. How much of that 13 cents is going to fixed cost?
That's a good question, Mr. Chairman. I've never seen it broken down into a percent cost. I will have to get that for you. But there is a percentage of that, as you point out, is made within that volumetric charge, because we're not allowed to charge the fixed cost of the fixed cost of the system. So
these states that do that, do they break that cost out totally? Because the people that would buy deregulated energy must pay their share of the fixed cost.
Yeah, I think there's, I said there was 13 deregulated states, and my bet is there's 13 different answers for that.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Senator May.
Yeah. So, your dad and my dad both, I had to tell my dad, quit answering the phone. Why are you buying this stuff? Every gadget there is. He don't even know how to use something that you're supposed to shrink stuff together. I'm like, would you stop answering the phone?
We haven't bought that one yet, but I'll be on the lookout for it.
My dad, 87.
Okay.
Yeah. So So the question I have for you, how many states, I don't know, I mean, you may not or may not know this answer, but how many states are deregulated compared to not being deregulated?
So if you look on your handout, actually on the back side there, the states that are in red are deregulated states. The states that are in yellow are states that are partially deregulated. That, by the way, can mean absolutely anything. So for instance, in Montana, they still are partially deregulated, but as I understand it, it's only for 10 megawatts in Yellowstone County, which is where Billings is. And so each partial deregulation means something different to all of them. The green states on your handout are regulated states. And what I would point out there is if you just look at those numbers, in almost every instance, the state that is in red is higher than the states that are in green.
Thank you.
For this witness? Well, seeing none, thank you very much. Next person in favor, please come forward. And I'm going to start probably giving people like 3 minutes each, okay, until we get closer. So we keep it for 3 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of Senate Bill 1411. My name is Todd Snitchler, and I'm the President and CEO of the Electric Power Supply Association, or EPSA. I'm also a former member of the Ohio House of Representatives, representing the 50th House District, and was the chair of the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio and the Ohio Power Siting Board. EPSA strongly supports this legislation to create a competitive electricity market, encourage private investment in new generation, and shift the risk off ratepayers and onto investors and shareholders who are best able to manage and wear that risk. EPSA is the only national trade association representing America's competitive power suppliers, and our members own and operate approximately 225,000 megawatts of competitively priced, environmentally responsible generation facilities in all 7 regions operating competitive wholesale energy markets. EPSA's members' assets include a diverse mix of fuels and technologies including natural gas, nuclear, wind, solar, hydro, battery storage, geothermal, and coal. Competition introduces meaningful discipline into the electric system, and in competitive markets, developers only build when projects are economically justified, must control their costs, and respond to real market demand rather than seeking guaranteed returns. This discipline is particularly important at a time of rising electricity prices, as it is a proven way to reduce unnecessary or imprudent investment, improve efficiency, and to protect consumers. I won't repeat some of the things that were already offered, but I will offer that over the last 25 years, competitive markets have definitively proven to be the most efficient and transparent way to meet our nation's electricity needs while protecting consumers from inefficient investment. How does that work? When competitive power suppliers invest in generation assets, they do so without guarantees for cost recovery and a approved rate of return, and the risk of investment sits with the developer and owner of the plants, not the ratepayers. The consequences of inaccuracies for load forecasts include both reliability shortfalls and investors left with stranded generation assets, which in some non-market regions are backstopped by captive electricity customers. With that, I'll thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for your testimony. Thanks for being brief. Senator Gray, do you have any questions? Where'd you go to college?
I went to school at Grove City College and got my law degree at the University of Akron, so I'm not a Buckeye.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Next person in favor of the bill, please come forward. I'm sorry, in opposition.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Rob Dixon with Ameren, Missouri. I appreciate the chance to talk with you about the harm that this bill would have on your constituents across the state of Missouri. To begin, the reliability and affordability of Missouri's electric system are the most important considerations. In fact, these are our most important obligations to the state. We have to ensure that the lights come on and stay on when they're needed, and we have to deliver that service at the lowest cost possible. And on both of those metrics, this bill moves Missouri in the exact wrong direction. If Missouri were to do what this legislation calls for and breaks up the state's rate-regulated electric companies, the facts that we've seen across the country paint a grim picture. Residential electric rates go up, reliability goes down, and Missouri families suffer. On the surface, I can understand why the idea of a utility company competing for customers might sound like a good idea. However, electric service is not like a consumer product that you buy off the shelf at the store. The grid must be balanced in real time, every second of every day, and reliability depends on long-term planning for generation and infrastructure. In a regulated system like Missouri, one utility is responsible and accountable for assuring enough power, maintaining lines, power plants, and providing rates that are reviewed and set by independent state regulators to make sure they're just and reasonable. In a deregulated system, those responsibilities are split and planning gets replaced by short-term buying and selling. If the goal is to keep costs low for Missourians, experience with these policies around the country shows that it has the exact opposite effect, adding costs and volatility and reducing accountability for keeping the lights on. As you consider this legislation, I urge you to think about the impact on our residential families across the state. We're not talking about big businesses that have the resources and legal firepower to negotiate multi-year contracts in search of the best deal. We're talking about folks on fixed incomes. If you look at the facts that we've talked about today, we have a green handout that you have in front of you, and what that shows in dollars and cents, because that's how Missourians are looking at this, not in percentages, but in dollars and cents. Over the past 5 years, residential rates have increased on average 4 cents per kWh across the country. In Missouri, thanks to our regulatory framework that we have today, that's only been 2.2 cents per kilowatt hour over the same period. When you look at these so-called choice states, like in the northeast part of the country, Maine, Massachusetts, New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, they've all seen residential rate increases at or above the national average, and we do not want to follow their example here. You can also look to our immediate east for another example, and you heard from my colleague from Evergy about Illinois. According to the Illinois Citizens Utility Board, which is a consumer advocacy organization like the Missouri Office of Public Counsel or the Missouri Consumers Council, residential customers there have lost a combined total of more than $2 billion since these policies were put in place. Simply put, policy ideas like this bill won't make life easier for Missouri families. As the facts show, it only makes things more difficult. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time today. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Senator Mosley?
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
How are you?
Doing well, Senator. How are you?
Doing all right. So, what are your reliability issues that you have with the competition?
Well, just like we talked about, I think you heard a previous witness talk about Winter Storm Uri in Texas. In a deregulated market like that, those providers, those generators failed Texans. They weren't keeping up with the system. The incentives that are in place don't encourage long-term planning. They don't encourage long-term reliability. In Missouri, you have one utility that's responsible for generating the power and transmitting that over the poles and wires. We're held responsible and accountable to the Public Service Commission, and we've seen time and again where that's not the case around the country. And so from a reliability perspective, from an affordability perspective, the current construct that we have in the state really provides the better benefit.
So you're saying as far as like power outages, is that what you mean?
Well, every system is going to be susceptible to outages. We're making investments in the energy grid to make sure that those are minimized. What we've seen in Texas is those generators weren't doing long-term planning like we do here, and they weren't able to keep up with the challenges of a Winter Storm Uri, and as a result, the cost impacts of that were astronomical for Texans.
So what do you mean by long-term planning with the generators? What do you mean by that?
Well, as you heard, they're talking about following short-term supply and demand signals. We're looking at building a system that's here over the long term. We have a 20-plus year integrated resource plan that has to balance a variety of different generation resources. We're thinking about the impacts on those different types of resources on our customers over the long term. We're balancing both the type and the fuel source, and that's what you get from a reliable system. If you don't have that same sort of structure like we do here in Missouri today, you're susceptible to the whims of the supply and demand of that moment when they've decided to build or not build.
Okay, because I know currently with the current electric company, we constantly deal with outages, so I didn't understand what you meant by reliability, because they like this homes all without power. A wind blows, the wind blows, whoop, no power, so I'm trying to figure out how you feel you are more reliable than what a competition would be, being that we always have to deal with numerous power outages, and they last a very long time, weeks at a time. There's been times where people have been without electricity for a week, came back on, they went and reshopped and got some more groceries, and then they went right back out again. Then they had to replenish those groceries all over again after another week. So I'm willing to give a competition a chance to see how it is. You know, I don't think it can get any too much worse than that.
Thank you. Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none.
Thank you.
We're going to now go to 2 minutes, I'm sorry, and the next person in favor, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Diana Plesha. I'm a lawyer for the Missouri Industrial Energy Consumers. These are the largest employers in the state, and they rely very heavily on having a continuous and reliable supply of energy. I think something that's lost in the discussion here is that we've had a major change in the regulatory paradigm in Missouri with the passage of SB4 last year. From now on, under that law, which is considered or called sometimes the construction work in progress law, this is a sea change in how utilities are going to be spending and charging customers. So my companies, Anheuser-Busch or Boeing, that are very large manufacturers, they're competing with not only with other states, but they're competing with other countries. And they need to know that not only are they going into the future with reliable electricity, but that it's going to be affordable and they're not going to be wasting money for spending on projects that may never come to fruition. The risk shifts entirely from the utility to the customer when you have construction work in progress. And the problem that we see is that without customer choice, we're going to be in a situation where the incumbent utility is going to be able to build very large power projects that even before they be at the point of beginning, years before they go into service, customers are going to have to pay for that. So when you're thinking about the value of customer choice, it really is an existential issue. If this legislation were to pass, and it has many protections for customers in it, it's a very well thought out bill, you're going to find that it's going to help economic development, it's going to put discipline on the utilities when they start building nuclear plants. We've had several major debacles in Missouri with excessive multi-billion-dollar cost overruns with nuclear plants. We're looking at that level of construction in the future. So I would say this is a great balance. You've changed regulation in a dramatic way last year. This is a great way to counteract that and make it a fair, level playing field.
Thank you for your testimony. Do you have any questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Next person in opposition, please come forward.
Chairman and committee members, thank you for this opportunity to testify on Senate Bill 1411. My name is Warren Wood, and I'm retired. But as an engineer that spent most of my life on energy production and policy, electric deregulation is an interesting subject to me and important to me. As a project engineer working on power plants, I moved all around the country for years. I lived in regulated and deregulated states. And the next couple of paragraphs, I'm going to go very quickly because everybody's said it before. Electric rates were higher in those other states, the deregulated states. I had choices. They are all more expensive. My reliability wasn't as good. I had multiple outages, San Jose and California in particular, for multiple times because they didn't have the electric generation to serve peak periods. And I should also note that not all customers benefit equally from this. Customers with high usage and good credit records, they're attractive to these companies. Residential customers are not as attractive, and the service offerings reflect that. Now, one thing I want to highlight is that I get the attraction to deregulate the electric utility industry. Deregulation brings competition, you get lower costs, you get greater quality of service, other offerings, or at least that is the sales pitch. Unfortunately, when it comes to electric utility service, history has not shown that to be true. Show me state, there's a lot of good evidence out there to look at. I would point you at the American Public Power Association study on deregulated versus regulated states. It provides a good, clear record without any investor-owned utility or other oversight. It just says, hey, the rates are higher. Now, there's reasons. There's some things that are not just because of the deregulated versus regulated issue, but they are higher. So with several years to observe market dynamics, I wondered why this isn't true, and really the why isn't that complicated. Providing electric service is an incredibly capital-intensive industry, among the most demanding in the world, up there with water utilities, natural gas and oil production. Cost and access to capital is strongly impacted by perceived risk of lenders and investors. Vertically integrated or fully regulated electric service providers have largely fixed customer base and regulatory regime, typically a PSC, that provides a level of certainty that lenders, investors, and can support with adequate access to levels of capital and favorable interest rates. Deregulated states don't have those same certainties. And with that, I think I'm done. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. You said you were experienced this in California or something, and you
Yes.
said that you had service outages. Now, if you hire a generator to provide you power, they're putting electrons on the system somewhere, you're pulling them off somewhere.
Yes.
How do you have a service outage without everybody on that, at least that branch, have the same service outage?
But everybody you mean the outage, were you referring to the outage
Right.
in California? Yeah, well, everybody in our area did go out of service.
So it wasn't just the customers of the provider, it was everybody.
Yeah, they simply did not have the energy production capacity to serve an extremely hot weather period.
Mm-hmm.
Silicon Valley went without power for days.
So your incumbent provider as well was out of power?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, they simply didn't have it. This is, they needed additional power plants, couldn't get them built. The local electric service providers weren't finding the capital to put them in place. Took Governor Gray Davis to step in and tell the locals to get out of the way and build the Gray power plant and put power back on the grid.
Any questions, Jason? Okay, see, now, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
testimony. Next person in favor, please come forward. We got a little bit of time.
Hi. Good morning, still technically. My name is Josiah Neely. I'm a senior fellow with the R Street Institute, which is a nonpartisan research organization focused on electricity and energy issues. I want to maybe possibly reconcile some of the conflicts that we've heard about rates in the different states. I think an important thing to remember is 25 years ago, it was states with higher electricity prices that tended to pursue restructuring as an option, because if your electricity rates are low, there's less of a motive. Trends, price increases have tended to be higher in monopoly states than in restructured states. Secondly, on the reliability issue, of course, most outages are local. They have to do with the distribution system. Whether a state is vertically integrated or not is not affected by that. In terms of generator outages, there's two big recent examples. You have Winter Storm Uri in Texas, and then there's Winter Storm Elliott in the southeast. Texas is known as a restructured state, but actually, as was mentioned previously, there are parts of the state that are still monopoly. Utilities own the generation and they operate under a monopoly. And if you look during Winter Storm Uri, the monopoly generators had higher outage rates than the competitive generators. Also, if you look at NERC, the predominant factor in terms of outages overall was problems with the natural gas infrastructure, which is regulated. It's not an issue of generation. Similarly, during Winter Storm Elliott, you had vertically integrated systems in Kentucky, in North Carolina, and TVA that had to resort to outages, and they would have been more severe if they weren't able to import power from restructured markets in PJM. So under a monopoly system, the utilities make money by spending money. Under a competitive system, you make money by producing power, especially when it's most needed. So the incentives are there to provide lower costs and higher reliability under a restructured system.
Thank you. Questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Now, in an effort to be fair, we've had four pro, and now I'd like to have my fourth witness that's opposed. Please come forward. And everybody else, we're going to be shut. We've got another insurances meeting after this, And so if you filled out the form already, please put it on the table. We will record you as being pro or against this bill in the minutes we send out. Thank you. Go ahead when you're ready.
Hello, my name is Angela Viviano, and I am a constituent of Nick Schroer's district. And I am a family advocate for retail energy and also for She Heals the World Association. And I am asking you to support House Bill 1411. To me, this is very important because my parents are on fixed income.
A second. I needed somebody opposed to the bill. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is somebody opposed just to keep it even? Come up, please, and speak in opposition. Right. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I just asked. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, if you want to wrap it up real quick, that'd be fine. But I need to have somebody up opposition, just keep it fair.
Okay, so my parents are on fixed incomes, and they're in their retirement phase. And by offering this peace of mind solution would give them sustainability and for generations to come. When people have the right to choose, it allows them to give freedom, and it also alleviates their quality of life. I'm also a psychology major, so if you could support this bill, would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. TJ, you want to come on up? I know it. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Committee. TJ Berry, testifying in opposition on my own behalf. I started out this process long ago as an advocate for deregulation and looked at the data, then slowly changed and have had a business in the biomass energy process, so both public and private, looking at this, and then formally a lobbyist. All I'm looking at, and I would encourage you to look at the Energy Information Administration, don't take my word for any of this, look at their data, and I aggregated all of the deregulated states and all of the regulated states and then averaged their kilowatt hours, and there's about a 23% difference between regulated and deregulated. That includes a regulated state, Hawaii, that has the absolute highest rates in the country at 55 cents per kilowatt hour. That's in the regulated equation, and yet the rates are much lower in regulated states than they are deregulated states. That's the data, 23% difference when you average it. I don't think that this is good for constituents. I don't think it's good for anyone except for sophisticated buyers. They could get a better rate. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for TJ? Seeing none, thank you. And folks, like I said before, we've got to vacate the room. If you have a witness form, please turn it in. We'll record you as pro or against. And please, you're welcome to go talk to any of the senators on this committee in their office and help make your points. Thank you very much. That will adjourn the meeting.
Just leave it anywhere. Thank you.
Fourteen.